when you bet on yourself, it's a pretty good bet, especially when you've got the passion to kind of take you to a next level. And any way I could support those students, I was happy to do so.
How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together. Welcome back to the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm Michael Sangster, your host, and welcome to episode 52. I've had some strange guests in my life, and I say strange because you're not going to think career college, you're not going to think education, but there are certain people in your life that you watch that touch people, that change lives, that have an impact, and even through darkest days always have a smile on their face. And today I'm joined by one of those people that I just want to have on because I know there is going to be some nuggets for people about mentorship and life. And I think there's a neat conversation about new changes and new life changes as things have gone on. So today I'm joined, and I will admit, a good friend, a good advocate, and a great listener when somebody needs somebody, and has been for me in my life, Sam Laprade.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's good to see you. We can see each other. The crowd can't, which that was purely a decision made when we started this podcast because people are going to have to look at me every week. So a face made for radio, as they say. So let's dive right in because you did radio.
You did, yeah, for a long time. Yeah, still do.
Well, until one day, though, when it was a little bit less radio, right? That's the life changes we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I started my career many, many moons ago in radio and worked for CBC Television and CBC Radio, and still on the air right now with my my weekly show, which is called An Hour to Give.
I've had the pleasure of being a guest on there, I believe, with the Outcare Foundation a while ago. Great venue for not-for-profits to tell their story and have a venue to find new volunteers, new donors, new ideas. So yeah, I congratulate you for doing that. How many cities are you in now with that?
We're just in Ottawa now. We had gone to the Maritimes, and when the station closed, we just went back to just being here in the capital.
Just enjoying here. So talk to me a little bit about Sam and her life, and we do make it a little personal, but you're a story of changes and pivots and new careers. And I wanted to get you on here because the career college sector that I work in and represent is all about second chances, and average student age is over 35, over 60% female. We're a different audience than what people expect. And I'm interested because you have probably reinvented yourself. I've done it a few times in my career. I've been in high tech, then I was in aerospace. Now I'm in this sector, but you've probably reinvented yourself more than anybody I know.
Yeah, it has been incredible. And it's so funny because when it's happening, it feels, in my case, it actually felt quite natural to move from position to position. I did start off in the media, which is kind of funny because, of course, as I came out of the public relations program at Algonquin College, to find myself back in the media, which is fantastic. And I love that opportunity. But that sandwich, kind of what happened in between has been everything from, I worked for a modeling agency for a number of years. I traveled across Canada with Ford Modeling Agency. I had the opportunity to work as a chief of staff for the mayor of Nepean at the time, working for many, many different nonprofits. And, then going out as an entrepreneur 18 years ago, I think it's been a natural evolution. And in so many ways, I think there's a lot of people now that kind of look at my career and think, wow, you were really strategic. I'm going to tell you, it didn't feel that way at all. Many things dovetailed into each other. And it's amazing, I think, how the nonprofit, the private sector, even my government role really all work together. And I really think it's a little bit of a symbolism of how the community operates, to be honest.
You're probably the best example I have of somebody just diving in and putting their back into it, though. Change takes a lot of hard work, determination, though, doesn't it?
It does. And I think there's some, definitely when I think about who was, kind of prepping that next step of the ladder for me as well, there's a lot of people to thank. It would take our whole time together, to be honest, today, but there's a lot of people that prepped that next step for me. And it's not lost on me that I had a number of mentors through my career, and I really try and do that as well, and mentor others as they come up the ladder as well. I think when I look back at the trajectory of my career, in many ways, I feel like I've just gotten started. Like there's some things where I'm like, oh, I still have this, and this to do. I just turned 54, and I wish I was 34, because there's just so much I want to do.
Yeah, but we didn't know what we know now when we were 34.
Yeah, true.
But we had a lot more fun.
Exactly.
Got into a lot more trouble.
Absolutely.
Actually, I think that was 24 when I got into more trouble than I get into now. I have to say, on Monday night, I'm still feeling a little young. On Monday night, I was in Toronto, and I took one of our former guests on the show, Jason Altmaier, out to watch a Leafs game. And on the way out, joined one of my team members. We stopped in at a pub to have a beer on St. Patrick's Day and go back to the hotel. And we didn't get back to the hotel till 2:30. So there's still some stupidity left in me. Talk to listeners about your book, because this was a passion for you, isn't it, about telling stories?
It is. And, Ron Corbett, the publisher, and he's a wonderful, talented writer himself. He, came from Ottawa Press and Publishing, and we just bumped into each other one day. And he said, Sam, are you looking for a different way to tell Ottawa stories? And I'm like, what do you have? And he described this incredible opportunity to tell the stories of inventors, creators, and change makers. And I was sold, honestly, in the first conversation. So I took over a year to write the book. I brought Caroline Phillips, a wonderfully talented writer in our community as well, into the fold. And she really did help me up my writing game, to be honest. She's a very talented writer. So we worked on this for about a year, and never in a million years would we predict, of course, the time that we're in our lives in terms of being proud Canadians and having to shout it from the rooftops. I really think that this book is the tariff talk antidote. It makes us incredibly proud. I think people are going to be very surprised of how talented their neighbors are. We know some of the names. We know the name Beaver Tails, for instance. It came from this region. We know Alanis Morissette and Paul Anka, but there's so many other stories to tell in this book. And we've already joked around that there should be a sequel, because as soon as we wrote it, people are like, what about this? And what about this? And so, it definitely could be a book that's written again in 5 years and with a whole new set of creative people.
Well, it's a very optimistic read, and it's two of the most optimistic people you'll ever meet writing it, which doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Two people who never frown.
Yeah.
Caroline is one of those gems of this city that's everywhere and goes above and beyond. And let me say that about you, because is there a charity you ever say no to?
There have been times that I've had to say no, I will say, but I say the majority of the time, unless I'm booked for something else, I say yes, I step up. I'm happy. I hosted just about 50 events last year in 2024 in Ottawa, and the same the year before. So I do host a lot of events. I do a lot of board work, as you know, and yeah, I've helped to raise a lot of money in this city and across the country. It's an honor, though. I really do love the opportunity.
There is nothing I enjoy more than sitting down at a table, seeing you pop up as MC, and know that I'm going to spend the rest of the evening trying to make you giggle from the front of the room. For sure. Although I don't do the gals I used to, but it's always fun to make you kind of lose your temperament a little bit. You never quite lose it. But you said tariffs. I want to give something here that's an encouragement for people from your own experiences. You talked about it a bit, but the Bay. We're looking at three stores in Ottawa going to close by the sounds of it, by the news today.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of people that are now sitting there going, what am I going to do for work? And some of them might be listening to this next week and thinking about a new career path. Mm-hmm. We're firm believers that getting into a career college, doing something for 6 months, 9 months, retraining, retooling, and going. But talk about your own challenges, maybe a failure when you did a transition from one thing to another, because it's hard. And there's a whole bunch of people now across this whole country thinking, what do I do next?
Yeah. And, and it's funny because not only my own experiences, but the book that we wrote as well have so many stories of people that took maybe a gloomy day and turned it into something incredible. We see the loss at Nortel when all those positions were let go. We know 2 people in the book have had an opportunity to reinvent themselves. One created the Instant Pot. Robert Wang created the Instant Pot, and Melody and Bruce Merson, they created the We Vibe. So, it is an opportunity when you do have something that maybe is coming your way that you're not suspecting. And in my case, certainly, there was a point in time where I was in a position that I wasn't very happy in. And I turned around and that's when I started to create my own agency, my own fundraising strategy company. And so I think that it is the time, if you've ever dreamt of doing something, this may be the time to do it. I think sometimes, although change may not be within our control, what's in our control is how we're going to manage that change. And, would you have ever told me that I would be writing a book? No. Would you ever tell me I do stand-up comedy? No. Even being an entrepreneur, it wasn't on my list of things to do, but all three of those things are probably the three things I'm the most proud of, other than, of course, my beautiful kid.
We talk about mentoring. I know you well. I know your kid has a great mentor in her life, your mother, right? A really big important of her life. You talked about her. But talk to me about a mentor. I warned you, you talked on it earlier, but talk to me about a great mentor or two that changed your life, because we ask every guest to talk about one.
Yeah, there's a few people that come to mind. There's incredible women that have been very supportive of me. The one, that I'll talk about today is actually a man that was a very big influence in my life, and it's Ben Franklin, not the one from the electricity, but the mayor of Nepean at the time. He was very supportive of me. I was quite young. I look back on it now when I was 23, 24 years old. I was a counselor's assistant, but he saw something in me. I went on to be the mayor of Nepean when Mary Pitt got elected. I went on to be her chief of staff. And to think I was 26 years old, I look back on it now and I'm thinking, what were they thinking? But Ben always saw something in me, and he definitely mentored me, gave me a lot of opportunities as well. I've had incredible mentors. I actually had a mentor, a boss of mine, that recommended I speak with a career coach. And that really changed my life as well, because I think, unless people sort of give you those opportunities to really explore, it's easy to kind of just see a staff person do the same thing day in and day out. But she saw something in me as well that I wanted to do something more independent, and I give her a lot of credit as well. So there's a lot of people, I think, in my life that have provided great mentorship. A number of amazing teachers. Anne Baldwin from St. Pius X. I look back on Anne, and we recently, she also taught Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, and recently the mayor invited Anne and I, Ms. Baldwin and I, to have tea at his office. And we did that together, and to sit down with our teacher. And what was so funny about it is that she had such an incredible memory. She remembered this paper that Mark Sutcliffe had written, and it was about the War Measures Act. And so she went on in some detail about how incredible Mark was. And then she turned to me and said, I remember you used to talk a lot. So basically, to give you a scope of how that teacher remembers us, but it's wonderful to have those opportunities. And I think, when I think back to all the amazing bosses that I've worked with over the years, Scott Bradford from Boys and Girls Club was a wonderful influence for me. But on the flip side of it, and not to be negative, but on the flip side, there are a few people that have come my way as well that I really try to lead 180% differently than they did. And I really see their leadership style, although not a style that I would like to sort of mimic, I see those opportunities as gifts as well, because I think being given the opportunity to see how not to lead is also a gift.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I've often said on this podcast that we get good bad mentors and bad mentors. And sometimes we get more out of the bad mentors than we get out of the good. We really don't, but you can go, yeah. I would never be like that.
Yeah.
I caught myself about 5 years ago and doing something. I went, my God, I never thought I'd say something like that to somebody working for me. And I went back and immediately apologized.
Yeah.
And regrouped and had to rebuild some trust with that individual. That's not the kind of person I was, but I was frustrated and I was tired, and I should have taken a walk, and I didn't. So we all learn, right?
For sure. And I worked for somebody that now, at the time, I had no idea, but there's a phrase called queen bee syndrome. And it's where, typically somebody that's a bit older, a woman that's a bit older, tries to kind of temper a young person, whether they're feeling they're a threat and so women to women, I think women need to support women, especially in the workplace. So to have somebody sort of pull that kind of nonsense with me, I really try to live my life 180% differently than they led theirs.
Well, good for you. You're an optimist, and I think that was quite an interesting conversation. It's amazing how many people find somebody from high school, a teacher from high school that had an impact over and over again. People will find one teacher. I had Mr. Tanner in junior high school who taught us in track, but also was one of the teachers, and he always accepted no guff, no crap from anybody. And I remember that attitude. Talk to me about a skill that you have or have developed over your life that you think makes, let's focus it in a little bit maybe, but what makes transforming like you have and changing careers so easy, not easy, but hard work, but it looks effortless, or a skill that you just generally think has been made you successful in your career?
I think relationship building has been really key. And, it's something as simple as like this morning, I had the opportunity to speak with a local BIA. And so when people reach out or they, send you a little note, responding to them, then taking the extra step, connecting with them on LinkedIn and really nurturing those relationships. I think a lot of the times people are expecting, it's kind of that whole thing. I'm going to sit on my couch and hopefully I find the love of my life. Very similar to that. You can't sort of sit at home and expect these opportunities to come. So when you're out in the community, make that conscious effort, connect with people after, thank them for their time. And I think the other thing too is when you're reaching out and you're establishing those relationships, I think it's really, really important to not always be looking for something as opposed to making the relationship a give and take. Because often I think, especially as fundraisers, people think that we're just, wanting to get, a gift or that kind of thing. I've really tried to, like, I'll take my time at the mission. Although, of course, I had to raise, like $1 million a year. I was really trying to also provide opportunities. So reaching out to a corporation and saying, we're hoping for a $25,000 gift this year, but we'd also like to invite your team in to do some team building and provide them with an experience around the gift. I think those are really important opportunities to not feel like you're just always asking, but it's a give and take relationship.
You do some work for an organization. I did want to give them a little plug today, but you do a lot of work with the Legion in Canada. Talk to me why you're so passionate about them and why they're such an important organization to keep going. I encourage my friends to join. It's actually a neat little business tool of having places you can go use around the country too.
100%. And the Legion, I resigned from that position, but I spent a beautiful 5 years with the Legion National Foundation. The Legion there's 1,400 branches across the country. And I think people think you have to be a veteran or you have to have family as veterans to become a member of the Legion. I think it's not true at all. You could absolutely become a member of the Legion. One of the reasons I think it's really important that Canadians become a member, because we don't have the numbers that we used to have in terms of obviously the First World War, Second World War. I think it's imperative that each and every Canadian, I'm a member, of course, of the Legion. I think it's important that each and every one of us, it's a nod to the veterans. I think by becoming a member, you're not only, of course, remembering on that day every November 11th, but I think becoming a member, you really give a nod to them 365 days of the year, that you believe in the sacrifices. Some obviously have given their lives for this country, but you believe in the sacrifices that have been made by them and their families to serve and protect this country. And I don't think there's been a better time than right now to join the Legion.
One of the things that you've done in your career is you were an instructor at Algonquin College.
Right.
For 10 odd years. They're not one of our members, but we always say that we believe universities, community colleges, and career colleges, an ecosystem. We all got to work together. We all got to train the right people, make sure our workforce is where it needs to be. There's things that we're good at, the things that we wouldn't be good at. And we're big believers in that kind of approach. So talk to me about your time at Algonquin College and teaching students.
Oh boy, I look back on it and I almost wish I could teach again, to be honest. I really enjoyed that. I graduated from Algonquin in 1991. And ironically, one of my teachers, Ian Barry, who, speaking about mentors, Ian Barry, he is one that really did change my entire life. He's a great radio guy, but he had me help him teach an online course, which at the time was kind of really hip and cool. Now it's just the way we do life, but it's very hip and cool to be doing it online at the time. So he had me teach with him, and then I went on to teach a number of courses on my own. But it was really great to see the aha moments, and it's a bit addictive to kind of see students walk in and be a bit nervous to even talk about a subject, and then you see them 3 years later at the grocery store and they're like, you're never going to believe where I'm working. So that was a bit addictive, to be honest. I love that opportunity to connect with all sorts of people in the community that were wanting that second career. A lot of the people that I taught, to be honest with you, were older than me. They had kids, or they kind of took a dozen years off and they decided that they were going to do something different. They've always wanted to try X, Y, and Z, and they wanted to come back to college. So I have a lot of respect for the men and women that make that choice in their life to have that second or third career. I mean, I think I'm on career number 5 or something. So I feel a lot of respect for people that are willing to take the chance, because it's a chance that they're taking on themselves. And when you bet on yourself, it's a pretty good bet, especially when you've got the passion to kind of take you to a next level. And any way I could support those students, I was happy to do so.
I can't think of a better argument for, like we mentioned earlier, the Bay employees that are sitting here trying to figure out a life change. And I guarantee there's a whole bunch of them never thought they'd leave the Bay.
Yeah, for sure.
And now all of a sudden, whoa, the Bay, like Eaton, Sears, the Bay are gone in Canada by all means. Maybe a few stores survive, but I can't think of a better advertisement as getting an instructor like you in one of these colleges to get a jump, get a start, and get moving in a new direction, right? And that's what we try and give people the courage to do.
We don't talk a lot about transferable skills, because I've just hired my 44th person. I help recruit nonprofit talent, and I just placed my 44th person in 5 years. And what is so amazing about that is the number of people that have come from the private sector and said, I really want to work in nonprofit. And what's happened, their skills are transferable. They've got great relationship skills. They might not have raised a dime in their life, but they're incredibly talented salespeople. And so give them a case for support that they're really passionate about, and that's all they needed. And they're off to the races, and they're wonderful fundraisers now.
It's funny you say that. You weren't involved in my recruitment, but I took a good cut and pay to take this role because I went to a graduation and I watched one of the members got me to go to one of the graduations and watch a 38-year-old single mother graduate to become a personal support worker and go work in a long-term care home, make a difference. And I meet so many people now in this role who talk about going from having a job to having a career, from working at Tim Hortons to working in cybersecurity and making $100,000 a year and excited about what they do. So you're bang on there about what it can be to take over these kinds of organizations. So it's nice to see that. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people in the private sector that can come forward and offer. I've always joked, I don't have one Rolodex. I got 3 of them. I keep one of those old Rolodexes because I put business cards in them, and we come with networks and skills that are different. And we encourage a lot of them to go back and teach too. Go get in. You should be back into college somewhere. I'm going to get a couple of our members to call you because I think you'd be a fantastic instructor on communications.
Yeah, I mean, it's my passion for sure.
And you're a master of it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity to kind of look back, and Algonquin recognized me, and I think it was 2022 with a Alumni of Distinction Award. And honestly, I was on, and still am, on cloud 9 about that recognition, because I really wasn't, and this is another point that I'd love to make, I wasn't a great high school student. But boy, you got me at college, and I was the hands-on portion. I was like top of the class. I was so happy to be there. And so I think, don't judge yourself by your high school scores either.
So true. In a couple of meetings today, talking about applying skills and building new systems to allow people to bring their skills towards their education to advance further down, because those tangible skills are so important, as you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything before we sign off, because this has been an interesting conversation. As I said at the start, I wanted to have you on because people sometimes don't have the courage to take the first step. And when I do graduation speeches, I often talk about you took one step, you took another, you took another. And as you said, you're not going to find the next husband sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
But you're going to take one step, then another step, then another step. And all of a sudden, you're 3 steps ahead of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And while everybody else thought it was crazy, you were doing it, and you shouldn't do it, let's go out to the pub. You were in class and you did different. So I think that's why I wanted to have you on, because you are the greatest example I know of someone who has just, okay, what next?
And I think not to be shy as well and ask people for what you want. Like, I think about my radio show, and I think about how I, approached a Rogers Radio and said, I've got this idea. And they were like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So I think sometimes you're not always going to get a yes, but at least try. Just keep hammering it. And we hear about great authors or great screenplay writers and that they pitched something 20, 30, 40, 50 times and everyone said no. You're going to get that one yes. So don't give up, for sure.
Ask for help.
For sure. 100%.
Ask for help, because people want to help you. Your circle wants to help you. And one of the great lines I heard during COVID I'd never heard before, which I now use, is if you leave the table and you're still being talked about, get a new table. We've all got an army of people who want us to succeed, so ask for help. Who was sitting, and I'm just thinking of this at the top of my head, but who was sitting in a basement or in a kitchen in Newfoundland thinking we should do a musical about 9/11 and Gander, which turned into one of the greatest musicals I've ever seen. I'll see it anywhere I can, come from
Me
away.
too.
But someone took a shot, tried something, and succeeded. And those are the great examples. So this has been an interesting conversation. We've gone from come from away to education to radio to the We Vibe was invented in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Absolutely, it
And
was.
we will find how many of our listeners Google We Vibe who don't know what it is. Didn't expect that, Sam, on the conversation today, but there you go. Anything else that you want to add before we sign off for this week?
No, one of the things I think I do is make sure that I do show gratitude for those that have helped me along the way. I think that also goes a long way, because I think it inspires them to keep going and inspiring others as well.
Oh, I think it's important. And so on that note, I'll thank you, because you've been one of those people for me on occasion who's listened to me or offered advice and has stepped up and helped us. And there's no better MC for a charity event. Keeps it moving and it's fun. And you can get home by a decent hour, but Sam does an awesome job, and she's just such a great part of our community. And the book is awesome. You didn't name it, Sam.
Ottawa Made.
Ottawa Made, so that everybody wants to get a copy of it, because I think, as you said, it does fit other cities. It's just optimistic stories. So thank you for joining us this week for our 52nd episode, and I look forward to everyone joining us again next week. Thank you. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ed Up Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4 or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.